Welcome back to WalkTube, everybody. I'm Builder Bear. Today we got a pretty special video for you guys. We're going to be going over the 4 steps that you guys need to take in order to build up to walk standards. We've been releasing a ton of videos lately on how to build better and how to build more realistically, and this is just one of those videos in the long line of videos that we have coming out. So we have 2 builds for you today. I've chosen one modern and then one traditional. The modern is by Andar Pringle, the Pringle Man himself. And then the traditional is by Carlos. Carlos goes like crazy in depth with his builds. We're not going to get into all that. He actually builds like studs and floors and stuff like that. You don't have to do that. Carlos just like on a whole nother level. But we're going to get into this thing, all right? Step 1 for how to build realistically and up to walk standards is layout. What you guys need to do is you need to use colored wool. And you need to lay out your builds using this colored wool. Use different colors to denote different things. In this build, we have orange for the inside walls, blue for large windows, and then red for outside walls, and then fences. These fences end up being stone later on, as you'll see, so we put them in red. A few things you need to keep in mind when you're actually laying out a build. Like layout is super important, right? And realistic houses are set up in certain ways. So over here you have all of the bedrooms. A bedroom, like all of the bedrooms in a house are all kind of together. And then you have the living area, which is this part right here. Again, they're all kind of together. The bedrooms are fairly easy to access off of that living area. And then at the other end, you have like the utilities of the house. So you would have laundry, you would have any like an actual utility room with your furnace, what have you, and then the garage. Another thing you need to think about when laying it out is ease of access from every part of the house. So think about coming into a garage with groceries. You want to be able to get to your kitchen fairly easily from that. So think about that when you guys are laying this out. You're laying it out with wool so you can change it when you're going on to the next step. Remember, there's a ton of stuff that you can do online. You can look at all sorts of websites to get an idea for layout if you don't have an idea on your own. We're going to come over here and we're going to check out the layout for the traditional house. And again, it's fairly like similar. You have bedrooms back here. In the front, you have one large, great living area. And then a porch off to the side. And then back here is a bathroom. Up top here, this back area is actually the utilities of the house, which is, again, very realistic for a house of this from this era. And then up top, you have 2 bedrooms and then another bathroom. Notice when you're laying out houses that have 2 floors, you need to put the stairs in, and you need to think about scale when you're doing this. We build like 5 to 7 blocks high for walls, so that's why you need to put the stairs in so you can kind of get that scale going as you build. Alright, moving on to step 2. Step 2 is furniture layout. Again, using colored wool, you will actually go into your build and lay out the furniture pretty much like you're going to have it at the end. The reason you do this at step 2 is if you need to make adjustments to your layout in order to accommodate some furniture that you hadn't thought about, you can do that very easily because you just have one layer of blocks instead of an entire wall to move. So again, some things you need to think about as well, using different colors for different things here. I think I've used, blue for maybe bigger pieces of furniture like the couch, the beds, the table, that sort of thing. I've used green for kind of secondary pieces of furniture. So the chairs at the table, the coffee table, there's a little end table right here, the entertainment center, all that sort of thing. Toilet, what have you. You can use any color. Just make sure that you know what color wool you use for each thing. If you need to use signs to actually like remind yourself what each thing is, go ahead and do that. You can also use signs to tell you what room is what, just so you don't get mixed up, and that's especially helpful in bigger builds. So one thing to pay attention to when you're actually laying out furniture, one of the things I think is dining room tables. So think about dining room tables and kind of think forward to how you're going to build your chairs. So if your chairs are going to have arms, it's really hard to do that with one block in between because you can only place one thing in each block space. So you wouldn't have arms on each of these chairs. He doesn't end up having arms on his chairs, so that's fine. But that's something you need to think about. Just as if you're going to have a dining room table with a chair at the end, you would want an odd number so that the chair can be in the middle. And these are just some things you need to think about going forward. Popping over here, we only did the bottom floor because that's all that Carlos had done when we took this build from him, borrowed the build from him. So we don't have anything on the top floor. You could put glass up here and lay out the furniture just as well. But again, down here, he has the kitchen laid out. We have blue for the fridge, blue for the couches, and then green, and even different shades of green for everything else in this build. And then back here is the bedroom with a chair, like a little settee or chase lounge, whatever you want to call it. And then the bed. And you notice you can center everything because you've laid it out in blocks. And say you put the bed there and it wasn't quite centered in the room like you wanted it to, you could very easily bump this wall right here back and it wouldn't be a problem because you're doing this in stage 2. Alright, moving on to probably the longest stage in this 4-step process, and that is actually designing the walls and the furniture itself. So this is where you're going to kind of lay out your block palette that you're going to use, and you're going to design the build around the layout that you've already done in step 1 and 2. This is also where you focus on scale, like vertical scale. I mentioned before that we build, about 5 to 7 blocks tall, and you want to keep that in mind. A lot of people tend to build 3 blocks up, and it doesn't really make sense. You don't walk into real buildings and scrape your head on the ceiling unless you're like 8 foot tall. And it's like 10% of the population or something. So keep that in mind. Other things you want to keep in mind is the overall aesthetic of your build. You can put a bunch of stuff in here that looks good on its own, but unless it kind of goes together and creates a cohesive build, it's not really going to feel good, and it's not really going to be a good design. So think about that when you're actually designing your walls and your furniture. If you'll notice that Andar has kind of gone with a more subtle color palette. A lot of times you can use any color you want, but the color that he's chosen to really pop is this red nether brick here, and it goes together very well with like the white rug, the white walls, and then some of the darker oak that he has. So think about that. Another thing you can use, different blocks. So he's used heads, player heads from the head database to actually put in some chairs and some seating area over here. Don't be afraid to do that. You have access to that on World of Keralis, and that's a huge thing. You guys have the guest spot, and you can use that stuff too. So don't be afraid to use that. Coming over here, we're going to see the traditional build again. Popping up the stairs. And then you can see, like, the traditional furniture is a lot different, okay? So in a traditional house, it's not necessarily like high-end design, right? It's more of a lived-in, like, family house that he's gone for. But again, it all kind of makes sense for the build that he's done. The kitchen's very open, and it kind of looks across the entire living area. The walls are... It looks like maybe they were painted, right? Somebody went to like Home Depot and got a bucket of paint and painted the walls. And that very much fits with the aesthetic of build he wanted. He doesn't just have a bunch of different stuff plopped in here. He wants it to look like it's a family house, and I think he's achieved that very well. Another thing you need to take note of in this, in stage 3, is you kind of start to get the outside of the house going, and you haven't really put in landscaping, but you've really set the groundwork for your landscaping. So you put in any buckets. Andar's put in the up symbol over here. It's a statue they put up for every build. You put in walkways, and then you can put in the actual walls themselves. So start to think about that. Step 3 is going to take you a very long time, and it's a tough step. It's not easy to do, and this is the one that can really, this makes it or break it. You can have a phenomenal layout, and you can have your furniture laid out, and it can be a good build. But step 3 is where you take it to that next level, and it actually becomes a great build. Alright, moving on to step 4 is where you finalize your build. You think about roof design here because you're going to slap a roof on. Notice right here he's gone with a 2-tiered, very sleek. This house almost looks kind of 1960s to me. It's got brick. It's very, very realistic, and it looks like it was designed, in like the 60s or 70s. It's like a very forward-thinking build. The other thing you're going to do is kind of go through your build and check out the design and see if it really feels real to you, and see if it makes you want to live there. And most of the houses on the server, they're something I would live in myself in real life. And then landscaping, you're going to stick down the landscaping, and dude, do landscaping, especially on your guest plots. It's going to make us look at your build in a whole different way. This, with all the bushes, looks a lot different than this. This is kind of, it's not dungy and dreary. It's a good build, but, look how well the bushes and the tree over here kind of sets this off. He's even put some grass around the tree. It's those subtle little touches that really set it apart. And then over here again, just very traditional landscaping on the outside. Big trees, a lot of bushes. I mean, this thing, it's kind of like farmhousey, right? You could see it like out on the country road in the middle of America somewhere, just kind of chilling there. Just, I don't know, it fits very, very well. So there you have it, guys. That was kind of a nitty-gritty, dirty 4-step process on how to build better. Now, later on, we are going to do videos where I actually go through and we will put down some layouts together. I'll build a traditional layout, I'll build a modern layout, and we'll kind of go through, again, like the different places that you could put stuff in a house. And then we'll go through and we'll actually put down furniture, and I'll let you guys know like how to think ahead to the design of the furniture and where you're going to place it in the build. And then we're going to build the walls, step 3, and we'll go through kind of different color palettes to use and different blocks to use. And then finally, we'll just complete the build with all of the little details that really set it apart and are going to get you guys Builder on the server. So thanks for watching, guys. I always appreciate it. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, go down, click the subscribe button, ring the bell, and click all. It's going to keep you guys up to date for all these videos that we have coming out. Until next time, keep putting blocks on other blocks and creating awesome stuff.